How often do you get to spend a day and speak to legends? Here with me today is former Australian coach and captain Rick Charlesworth, and joining us today will be Sandeep Mishra and Tony Fernandez, former coach of FC Lyon. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Rick and Sandeep, your predictions were bang on for India-Belgium match, 2-2 draw. You predicted 2-2.
Yeah. Well, I'd take the accolades.
Sandeep, you saw the match. How would you summarize the match?
I was just, after the first two quarters, I don't know how you all feel, but I was quite scared. I mean, the way things were going with the goal up, and I didn't see the Indians playing. I mean, they were just no flow. They were not getting into the scheme of things. And of course, it was just a goal. But sometimes you try and predict third and fourth according to what happens in the first and second. Well, it was a welcome change to see the third and fourth, because suddenly everything was completely different. And yeah, at the end of the day, I guess 2-2 seems to be a good result, looking at what happened in the first two quarters. But I still think we could have forced the issue with the goalkeeper not there. You know, with 4 minutes to go, we could have forced the issue. So 2-2 at the moment seems to be a happy result. Rick?
Yeah, Rick, what's your take on the match? Because, you know, first two quarters, Belgium dominated pretty well, and then India made a comeback in the third quarters, and the fourth quarters back to Belgium. How do you see the match?
Well, I think what happened in the first half was that what we predicted was that the India would have to defend well against a forceful Belgium team, and they hit a lot of balls into the circle, and they force errors and make mistakes. And India couldn't, when they then won possession of the ball, they couldn't penetrate to the other end. What's the best way to stop that happening? What happened in the third quarter was that India played in their half, and there was very little pressure on their goal. Why did that occur? I think in the first half they had difficulty getting the ball out because they stretched themselves too much over the field. You can't do that. They were up against a wall of Belgian players, and you have to get in amongst them. You have to be able to pass the ball. Manpreet was by himself in the middle, and he was swarmed every time he got the ball. So I think they made an adjustment. In the second half they started to throw some overhead balls, so they got behind the Belgium defence, and Belgium found themselves pushed back into their half. And India was dominating possession and getting penetration. And rightly they scored, and then they got more confident. They started to, the thing that most upsets Belgium and all the other teams is they started to use their agility and skills, and so they started to run Belgium around. Belgium got tired, and I agree with Sandeep. India could have got 3, and then the game would have been out of Belgium's reach. Belgium did the right thing though. They took their goalkeeper off, and they got some penetration. When you do that, you usually get to the circle at the other end if you can play the ball and manipulate it, and I think they did that pretty well. They got to the circle, they made a couple of chances, and they scored. But it was a trapping error in the circle that cost that last goal, and without those little errors, and we talked about that I think yesterday, didn't we? Without those little errors, then India could have held on.
Tony, what's your take on the match? You saw it from the stand.
Yeah, it's perfect analysis. Honestly, it was the way I looked at it also, actually. See, the first half was a bit, the first quarter, second quarter was a bit frightful, but then we came out with guns blazing for the second half, the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And I think that, the fluidity in the hockey was there. We played the way India, at least I as a spectator loved to see that type of hockey. Yeah. You see, it did make me frightened in the first two quarters. And then, yeah, so it's perfect analysis on their part, and that's the way I looked at it also, actually. See, that's what's...
Sandeep, I remember speaking to you about Belgium missing 7 penalty corners in the first match, and tomorrow they started well and rectified those mistakes and goaled off a penalty corner. They rectified all these mistakes?
Even if you look at the penalty corner, I thought it was a soft goal at the end of the day. I think the positioning probably, and sometimes I do feel over the years, over the last 10 years, the more you see of Srijesh, there are times when the ball that is coming on the pitch, that is coming on the turf, sometimes becomes an issue with him. even he probably said at the press conference or to a journalist yesterday that, you know, I'm really sorry for those goals, especially the second one also. But it looked like a soft goal to me. So, but penalty corners, yeah, I mean, sometimes a very good one is stopped, and sometimes a one that's probably going along the pitch sometimes gets you the goal. So, but I won't be too this thing about Belgium's penalty corner skills at this moment of time. Let's see what happens in their next game, because that is a hugely important game for them.
The first quarter, Mandeep went on to miss a very good chance of scoring and equalizing.
Yeah, he had the best chance in the first quarter, and normally Mandeep's very good there. But I think because the ball came slowly, he was a bit anxious and he went towards it. He should have let it come and he would have knocked it past the goalkeeper. But those things happen. You only have a second in which to make the decision. In fairness to Srijes, though, for a goalkeeper, when he sets himself with his legs apart. And if the ball comes between his legs, it's just as hard to do that as it is to reach out with your foot sideways. And so you saw the other day, Pilat put one right between the legs of Cortez. That's actually a very good corner, because the goalkeeper has to set himself. He's ready to go either side. The ball comes down the middle. It's just as hard to get your legs together. In fact, it takes longer than to reach.
So the question is, does a flicker sometimes
yes.
look at that angle?
No, we would deliberately fire the ball down the middle.
Okay.
And if you can get it right in the middle between the goalkeeper's legs, that's a perfect shot.
Oh.
And there's little risk.
I'd like to ask here, the first two quarters, Belgium pressed hard, but why they weren't able to do in the third quarter where India made a strong comeback?
Well, because India was controlling the ball and they got the ball behind the Belgium defence. You always have to try and get it behind their defence. When they were trying to get out in the first half, they were trying to do it from the back. And some of their players were too far away. They didn't have enough people in the midfield who were wanting the ball. Manpreet was wanting it. He always wants it. That's what you want there, but you need more of those guys. And that wasn't happening. Sometimes the strikers have to come back into that area, receive the ball and break up the play. I think they will have learned from that. I don't think they'll make that mistake again.
I think personally there's a lot of confidence that got into them in the third and fourth quarter. That's the reason why they played hockey the way they normally know to play it. I think the first two quarters they were a bit overwhelmed, playing Belgium, etc., etc. I see. But then I think after that they came out of it and they played hockey that, anything.
As coaches, I mean, I'll ask Tony and Rick, both of you, what possibly could have, Harinder told his boys after the first half that, made a comeback, a strong comeback, and they started attacking in the third quarter.
Yeah.
As coach, what could possibly he could have said?
Sorry, Rick, no, please. Actually, if I knew you'd ask me that question, I was with Harinder up till 2:30 in the morning, this morning. We were together. No,
did he reveal that to you?
No, we were talking about it. Yeah, I suppose that's what he must have told them actually. See, played simple hockey. Don't look out for frills and extras. And that I think that's exactly what we did actually. We are capable as Indians. I'm sorry, Charles. As Indians, we are capable of playing that type of hockey. The moment we stop playing that type of hockey, we are in trouble.
Yeah, well, I as I said, I think that the thing that most upsets a team like Belgium is the agility and the skill of the Indian players, the ability to keep possession and make them chase the ball.
Exactly.
When you have the ball, the other team is chasing, and you get tired when you're doing that. But you also, but the reason that Belgium couldn't get out was because India was penetrating, and they threw some overhead balls, which did make a difference, into the circle. 2 or 3 trapped in the circle. One, Dilpreet lost the referral. Yes. He made a bad decision. He shouldn't have referred that one. I think he wanted to bring it back after he'd made the decision. But the point being that those balls, suddenly Belgium's looking behind themselves, and they're back on their baseline defending. And so they had difficulty getting out, just as India had in the first half. So the fact that they controlled the ball, the fact that they fired some penetrating passes, made the difference.
Varun Kumar played well yesterday. He made an amazing, gave an opportunity to Harmanpreet Singh, who went on to score the equalizer. Talk us about that.
I think if you look at the first match, I think Varun was a little so-so. He wasn't really getting into the... He made a few good saves and he overlaps also pretty well from the right flank. I think That's the question we asked Harinder in the press conference, and even Varun. What happened at the break? What did the coaches tell you? And both of them started laughing, because we all know that Harinder sometimes has this thing of losing his temper, you know, with the team. So both of them were very quiet. And then Harinder comes up with that lovely line. He says, while coaching the women's team, at least I've learned that you cannot now lose your temper. So that he's carried on with the men's team. But I think Varun's aerials, especially a couple of them, were perfect. I think he found that groove. You know, sometimes a player just gets into the match. You see a player playing 2 quarters pretty badly, and because the team's not doing well, you know, and sometimes you get swept up with it. But I think he really dominated play out there. I think he was good at the PC. Takes a lot of confidence for you to go up, knowing that you got Harmanpreet there, you even got Amit Rohidas there, and both of them had taken PCs in the first game. Varun didn't get a chance. Here he took that, and he really used those opportunities to make it.
Talking about the second goal scored by Simranjeet, it was a lovely pass by Kothajit, and then Simranjeet went on to score with a deflection.
Yeah, I always like what Kothajit does. I think he's really reliable, skillful, but he always pops up there making some play and creating something in attack. The pass was a very good one, but the hardest thing to do if you're a striker is to keep your stick down and to play where the ball's going when there's all sorts of things happening in front of you. And that's what he did. I call it the MS Dhoni play. Because like the wicket keeper has to put his hands there, the ball never comes, and then suddenly it comes, you've got to be there. Well, he was there and his stick was down in the right place. That's the skill of a striker. And that's what he did. He was in position. His stick was low. If he'd been waiting with his stick up, or if he'd been upright, he would have gone. Yeah. But he was down, and so even though it looks very simple, that's the hardest thing to do. And good strikers do that. They've got their stick low. They're like a vacuum cleaner on the ground, and that's why he scored the goal. The delivery was terrific from Kothajit, but credit to Harmanjeet. He was there and he had his stick down.
And I think that's what they tried to do in the first quarter, second quarter. Yeah. Just bang, 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 and you see. And then so they realized, I think, that the ball was coming back again to them. And then in the second half, they didn't try. I mean, they did it very rarely, but they did it at the right time, at the right moment.
That's probably what you said about Mandeep.
Exactly.
I mean, how difficult it is for a striker to be there in position and to find that particular corner.
Yeah. You have to have patience, but you also have to trust your instinct. You're right, though. They still hit too many balls into the circle. In the second half, especially on the right, there were opportunities for people to get the ball, run it on their stick, close to the circle, and feed just with a push. And then you can find a striker leading in the circle, and you have possession in the circle corner, another shot at goal. They could do that better. I think they understood that. There was opportunities to overlap on the right-hand side a lot more than they took. I think they will have learnt that too.
After doing well in the third quarter, there were too many defence errors and turnover issues for India in the fourth quarter. Would you guys agree to that?
Yeah, fourth quarter was even. India had the better of it mainly. It's only when Belgium did what they had to do. I would have done it earlier. We were talking in the commentary. I was reading a mathematical treatise the other day that said you should pull the goalkeeper 6 or 7 minutes before the end, not 2 or 3 minutes. That's too late. If you look at the maths of it, it should do it earlier. And if you're 2 goals down, you should pull the goalkeeper 13 minutes before the end of the game. Yeah. But the point being that they did that, and when you have an extra player and you control the ball at the back and don't make any mistakes, then you invariably can advance to the other end of the field and get into the circle, and they did that. They got in the circle 2 or 3 times, a missed trap once, and that was enough for Belgium to score.
As Rick pointed out, you know, they brought in kicking back, and yet India were not able to utilize that. Your thoughts on that?
I think personally that they didn't play realizing that there were 11 players on the ground. Actually, you see, they still kept defending, and I mean, voila. So I think probably they should have taken that into consideration, turned the ball around, you see, and then they could have tried the long scoop. You see, which have brought the play from their end to onto this side, and then created a penalty shot corner. A shot corner would have made the difference without the goalkeeper actually. See, and I think that should have been the purpose at that particular time. Try and get a shot corner, which will permit them to have an advantage at goal.
Sunny, I would like to have your views on that, because fourth quarters we missed a lot of opportunities. Their goalkeeper he wasn't there, and your take on that?
No, I think as Tony said, a lot of us out there were also feeling that if the ball control was there with India, maybe it could result in a penalty corner, because that's what the push was. But Belgium, in so many ways, also know that. So the control, which team has the control, will also dominate the last 3-4 minutes. And I think Belgium did that pretty well. They went for it, knowing that there's no goalkeeper out there. They couldn't afford it. There was no way they could have given that ball over to India and made India control, because of the whole.
And so that's exactly what you have to do. When you have the man advantage, you play man on man. And so every Indian player who receives the ball's got someone contesting it with him. So you don't give them any easy balls. They tried a couple of long ones, as you suggested, Tony, and it nearly worked.
Yes.
And once they got to the circle,
Almost,
but then Payet came out. What's the Belgian guy? I'm trying to remember his name now. The defender who was wearing the bib. Leipart. Leipart came out, and even if it hits his foot, it's okay. He can play on. And Akashdeep had him there and tried to beat him, but this guy can play with his feet and his stick. You can't win a corner. They got into the circle but weren't able to win a corner. So Belgium was smart. They made every ball a contest all around the field. So it's harder for India to get out in that situation.
So instead of utilizing the opportunity, they conceded a last few minutes goal, which is quite a normal thing for India. They've been doing it consistently, considering we did it at the Commonwealth Games, at the Asian Games, and at bigger tournaments, I would say. And it happened again in the World Cup.
If you look at scoring, then there's more scoring in those last few minutes for every team. It's not just India. Other teams concede too. I think you're sometimes too hard on your team. Probably that's the one that Sri should have saved, though. That's the error I would have thought, that the goalkeeping error that cost, because that one was savable, I suspect.
Yes, it was.
I remember Roland Oltmann saying that it's the habit of the Asian teams rather than the European teams conceding goals at the last minutes. Would you guys agree to that, Tony?
No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think the problem is that's where we have to master ourselves actually. See, we panic in those moments. You see, and I personally feel it's nothing to do with hockey. It's more psychological. I think that's why we have to work on. Because that's what counts. I think those last minutes we are leading. Why should we have to panic? We play simple, plain hockey. Okay, and then continue playing the way we have been playing during the rest of the match actually. See, in the last 5 minutes or whatever it is, I don't see why we should panic. We have the skill work, we have everything what we need to have, and I think it's nothing to do with hockey. I don't know if Rick will agree with me. It's more psychological effect than anything else. I think that's the way I look at it.
Sandeep, Harinder went on to say that he won't call it a misfortune. Then what do we call it?
He called it a very simple error. He said that should never happen. It's not a misfortune. You can't take it as luck or anything. He said it was a mistake. We did the mistake. We should never repeat it. But these last second goals, I think they get highlighted a little more. And sometimes it happens like in the Asian Games. I mean, like
exactly.
So it just gets highlighted. Exactly. You're playing Malaysia. You're leading 2-1. You got 2 minutes to go. Harmanpreet's scoop or aerial ball doesn't go where it should. A Malaysian attack comes in and there's a PC and there's a goal. But that happens to a lot of other teams also. We highlighted a little bit. I think Rick has a point where we are probably a little
too critical of India.
Yeah, so it happens and then we just go on from there.
But you got to give credit to the other team. The other team's trailing. They're going to do some things. They're going to take more risks. They take off their goalkeeper. They'll do things that give them an advantage. Usually in that situation, it makes a difference, and they get to the circle a couple of times. If you make a mistake in the circle, it costs you. If you don't, then you've got the ball and you're out the other way, and suddenly the ball's at the other end and they're defending without a goalkeeper. That's pretty good.
Let's talk about the first game of the day that was played yesterday, Canada, South Africa. Canada played well in the first 2 quarters, and South Africa made a comeback in the last 2 quarters. What will you say, Rick, about that particular
Well,
match?
we've seen it maybe in 30 or 40% of the games here. The team that made the play, made the most penetrations, made the most goal chances, didn't win in the end. South Africa probably had much the better of the game if you look at the statistics, and it ends up being a draw. They did enough to win, but when you look at it, you think Julian Hykes had 3 or 4 balls where he trapped in the circle and shot at goal, and he missed by this much on either side. That ball goes in, it's a winner. The goal scorer, Tulusi, who scored the goal for South Africa, had the best chance of the game in the first half, diving and just deflected the ball wide. They had enough good chances to win the game. They had 7 or 8 corners and didn't score. The goalkeeper from Canada had a very good match. But if I was South Africa, that was one that got away.
Sandeep, now the pool matches, like with 1-1 matches left, India is yet to play Canada and Belgium will be playing South Africa. How does that leave the pool and the possibility of quarters and the point difference?
I think it's still wide open. I mean, in the sense, though India is in the driving seat with a +5, and also playing the last match, as Harinder also pointed out yesterday, that we can wait and understand and see and look at the situation. But I do feel that India has a very strong chance now of topping the pool and moving into a quarter-final position. Belgium can't lose to South Africa. Looking at the play now, I think they also need a big margin. In fact, they need by 3 or 4 goals, or probably more.
They need 4 plus.
Yeah.
At the moment.
But here's the problem. Belgium wins by 6. India then has to win by 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Then that can be hard. And Canada have only conceded 3 goals in 2 games. Canada are better defensively than South Africa, and they have a very good goalkeeper. So then that can play on the mind of India. If Belgium doesn't get that sort of a score, then it's all over.
But then you don't have to really go back. I mean, too long. I mean, the Hockey World League semi-finals, Canada beat India 3-2. We made all the chances. We made 17 chances. We couldn't score, and they scored off penalty corners. That's where they won the game, because they only had 7 chances. So I think, in a way, open. Yeah, I do agree that Belgium can score more.
Tony, you were saying something. Yeah.
No, what I was saying is that we have an advantage. We play the last match. It means so we know exactly what we should do. If we can't do it, bad luck.
So do you think that because Belgium will be playing the first match of that particular day, and then India will follow it, India will have an advantage having the advantage of keeping that in mind, that they have to win by so and so much? And
yeah, you know what you have to do. It's just if you had to win by 3 or 4 goals, sometimes that can be hard.
Yes.
If you just have to win the game, then okay, there's definition about it.
Yes, okay.
But if they have a target that's quite a high target, you can get ahead of yourself. You can be worrying about that. The game goes no score in the first quarter, no score in second. Then panic can set in.
We've done that in the past.
Yes, I mean, like I said,
2000 Sydney Olympics, we needed a win. We just needed a win.
Exactly.
We ended up with a draw against Poland. We were out of the semi-finals. Korea came in.
Exactly.
So it's tough in a way. I mean, of course.
But
I mean,
like I said, we have to learn from experience also.
True.
You see, and I think that's where the coach and everybody comes in. Okay, to say, all right, boys, come on, this is what we need to do. All right, and
and Harinder was in that match. He was the assistant coach of Oscar.
Yes, in Sydney. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I personally feel that knowing what the boys have to do, I would think that's an advantage.
I would rather be in India's position than Belgium.
There you are.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And it may not even happen, but I'm just looking at the worst case scenario.
Yes, of course.
But so can you deal with the worst case? Yes, you can, but it's not easy.
I think we have to be we have to be positive in this case. All right, learn from our past experience, and I think, as you said, it's not very long ago at the Asian. You see what happened to us.
True.
So I personally feel that they could work on that, and So,
gentlemen, let's talk about today's matches. We have 2 matches: Spain versus France and New Zealand versus Argentina. For the first match, Spain versus France. It's a do and die for Spain, and how do you look at that match?
Well, they're neighbours, and Tony knows France better than anybody. But I was impressed by France the other day. They have some quality about them, and they are a pretty tenacious team, and they have a lot to play for. Spain were unlucky. Spain probably deserved more in the first match, so they'll be a bit disappointed. They've lost their captain, Dilas, I think, is out, so that's a cost to them. From that point of view, while you would expect Spain, I wouldn't count out France. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah.
Spain has a French coach who's played hockey in France, so I think he knows exactly what's it like. Actually, see, yeah, Rick, you're right, absolutely. You see, so it's going to be not going to be that easy for Spain, although France has not been playing. I mean, a hockey playing nation. There's more of football there than anything else. So, but at the moment, yeah, I think it's an open game also for me. It's an open game for me.
Sandeep, the first match against Argentina, Spain were unlucky because they have Pea, you know, and that won't happen against France, so they have a chance. And also, France, they impressed everyone in the first game.
Yeah, true. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, France is going to come back strongly in this one. I do believe that, because they missed that first game. You know, they were there. They could have easily, you know, done something much better than what they did. But I think they're going to come back strongly here, like Rick rightly said, and there is going to be some form of, you know, with Spain losing their captain, I think that they will need to do some rotation around. But France is strong enough to at least make a bid for taking a game off.
France won't, I mean, they won't have anything going against, because they have nothing to lose, right?
Yes, of course, certainly. They have nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. I mean, I suppose in France we were all happy that we had qualified for the World Cup. So yeah, they have nothing to lose, I think. So they just go all out now to prove themselves. I mean, that it can be done.
I think the last time they played was 1990 World Cup.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the.
So yeah.
And both these teams are fighting for a spot in the crossovers.
Spot, yes, that's right.
There's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
And coming to the second match, New Zealand versus Argentina, how do you guys look at that particular match?
Penalty corners? Argentina?
Yes.
You keep him away?
Because it's a team that's aging.
You look.
Team that's aging also.
If you look at the record, in recent games, New Zealand has done better than Argentina. Now, they haven't played so much recently, but New Zealand's a pretty good match for Argentina because they play a slower game than, say, for instance, Australia. They have some clever breakaway forwards. They can win a corner. The problem will be if they give away too many corners, I think.
Yeah.
And you've got to think that Argentina are probably a notch above New Zealand, but I wouldn't discount an upset in this game either, because New Zealand would fancy themselves, if they happen to win this match, then they're into the quarterfinals. They've got a lot at stake.
So,
They have to be wary of a threat called Pea.
Yes, that's right. And the short corner, yes. So, yeah, so that.
And Sandeep, do you think that, you know, whosoever will win will virtually be into quarters?
Absolutely. I think that's where Argentina will probably pull it together. Though I think Rick has a point when he says they play a slower game. So those kind of things will come into play. And how Argentina tackles them is something that needs to be seen, and how much of the defense can keep those species away.
Yeah.
Because the more the penalty corners you give, and if this guy fires in one, then he gets into the groove. I think you would remember the last World Cup very clearly. I mean,
yes.
he was firing in it from everywhere. And that's one reason why they finished with the bronze in the World Cup. And then again the Rio Olympics, I mean, that's where they got the gold.
Rick, you were bang on with your predictions yesterday. What's your prediction for today in both the matches?
I think, well, I think Spain and France can end in a draw, and I think that maybe by the odd goal, Argentina. I would also put this in, if you look at it, even say for instance New Zealand had a good game today and won or drew, then them getting past Spain's not a certainty. So, you know, and Spain win today and Spain win against New Zealand, then Spain gets the second spot, you know. So there's a fair bit going on here. This pool is a difficult one. But yeah, they're my predictions. I'm going for a draw in the first game, and in the second one I think maybe Argentina by the odd goal.
Tony, you'll put your money on France in the first game?
No, yesterday I predicted 2-1 for India. It didn't work out that way. So I now refrain from predictions. I just enjoy the game, and because on a given day, it all depends how the team plays. You see, I see a team on a previous day. It's not much, and then they come out. The next match played is, it's completely different. There are probably so many things that come into play. So predictions, I'm not very good at all that. You see, I prefer staying away from that because.
Sandeep, you weren't bad with the prediction either. So what's your prediction?
I'll still put it on Spain and Argentina. I'm going with Spain and Argentina.
Yeah.
That's here for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll come back tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.